All right. I see our faces in the OBS, so things have to be working. Good morning. Actually, it's good afternoon for you. It's afternoon for me too. Time zones are weird. Good afternoon, Jasmine. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Although I'm not a real big fan of all the forest fire smoke that's been invading my state of late. That's not the most enjoyable thing to deal with. But
No.
you know, it's better than I guess having to deal with the forest fire itself. So
Yes.
trade-offs, trade-offs.
Yeah.
But
True.
anyway, so
Mhm.
Jasmine, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Excuse me. Why don't you just give me your origin story, your background? How did you get into this crazy technology space, and
Uh-huh.
let us know a little bit about how you got here.
Sure. I was actually, when I was getting my morning coffee today, I was thinking about like, yeah, what is my origin story? And it really starts from when I was like pretty young. So we got a home computer. So some background, my mom, my father, they were pastors, and they had their own church, and so they needed flyers and like documents and things like that, for just like administrative purposes and also for the congregation. And so we got a personal computer in the home, and with a printer so that we can print out flyers and stuff. And I kind of got put in charge of like making sure things were formatted right, and that was like my exchange for like being able to like play PC games on the computer.
Ah,
And this is before like we had the internet, so like
right.
all I really had was like games and like bootleg version of the games too. So there was this woman, a family friend of ours named Concy, and I'll never forget her because she's the one who helped me learn how to fix the printer. She was the person that we would call whenever we'd have issues with the computer. And
Oh,
then she
sure.
kind of passed that knowledge on to me. And then I became the dedicated tech person in the house. So, I even got a little bit more time to play on the computer because, I was kind of the person in charge of, making sure that things ran smoothly. And yeah, and that really was my first introduction into, I guess, the industry because, and, during that time, I wasn't thinking about like, how I'd be perceived or things like because Kansi was a black woman like me. And so just
Sure.
to see somebody like, looks like me, like showing me how to set up the computer, like looking back, it was a powerful moment.
Right.
As we got the internet, I kind of came back to it. So around that time, MySpace, LiveJournal, Neopets, what I really didn't get into, but like I played it, but I didn't get into like the customizable parts of it. I started customizing my MySpace and my LiveJournal, and then my friends started asking me how to
How
do
did
it.
you do
So
that?
like, right, exactly. So that foundation of HTML and CSS, I started to solidify with a little
Hmm.
bit of JavaScript here and there. And the reason, and my kind of my segue into that was from like not having internet access.
Sure.
So before we got Word on our machine, we had what's that sweet
Yeah.
Corel, I don't know how to
Yeah.
pronounce it. So it's Word, so their version of a word processor and presentation software. And so I would use it, and like they had like this really weird like feature in it where you could like essentially make your own Mr. Potato Head. And so like I would like get this little like face and like put like all kinds of like features on it, and I would like present to my mom. It's like, how do I know that I was supposed to be in DevRel? So
Right.
like I would present it to my mom and my dad.
That's
It's
awesome.
like, and like, dress up and like, look all business like. So yeah, so it started when I got the internet. I was like, how do I get this on the internet? And so
Right.
that led me to GeoCities, MySpace, all of these things, and like customizing my own site. And I kind of let it go for a bit.
Sure.
I my dream. So the movie Twister really changed my life. Like I wanted to be a meteorologist. I wanted to research and like travel the world. I wanted to like build technology that could like
Right.
analyze like tornadoes and hurricanes and stuff. I grew up in Florida, so we had like a lot of very interesting weather, from time to time, especially during the summer.
Right.
And I got to school, I got accepted to school for meteorology, and I was minoring in CS to give myself a competitive edge.
Sure.
And I took a Pearl class, and I was like, this is it. This is it. I need to switch my major. I know for like others, it's like usually it's like, C or something else, but
Sure.
it was this Pearl class. And I was just like, this is it.
Yep.
This is it for me. I got to switch a major. And so I switched to software engineering because at that time, our school, like the CS department wasn't very huge.
Sure.
And and I'm actually really glad that it turned out that way because I find that with software engineering, I got to see like just different parts of the industry that I can kind of be part of. It
Right.
doesn't like tech doesn't just have to be programming. So fast forward to all of that, I graduated, got an internship, and yeah, and today everything that I've learned up to this point has prepared me for where I am in developer relations, and now I'm in a place where I can work with students and give back to that the knowledge that I have that I've had now, and that's what I do at Microsoft. I spend a lot of time educating educators as well as students on like how to like use the cloud and use technology to enhance your experience around
Right.
you. It doesn't have to be programming. Just adopting these pillars will make your productivity just more enhanced.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, that I have echoes of my own background in that. You grow up playing with it, and then you're like, wait, I can do this for like a living. Like, okay, cool.
Hmm.
And I totally understand the tech support that we were talking before the show in the pre-roll that that tends to be a lot of us fall into that category of, oh, we're the default tech support person in the house because you work with computers, right? You must know how a printer works. Like, no, but I'll try. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
you know it, it's always fun for me to see how people kind of make that transition and like what was it that sort of like captured you. Was there something about Pearl that you're just like, wow, that's it, or it was what kind of captured you?
So I think one thing I never realized about myself is I've always been like a builder. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to like start something from zero and like take it to like, whatever next level that it is. And
Yep.
so I feel like that class in pro was the first time that I was able to see the output of my work.
Oh,
To,
sure.
like, I mean, aside from like before, like, building these websites, like I forgot like that excitement and that joy of like being able to build and be able to create
Right.
something and like just knowing myself like being very analytical, just like having like rules, like having like like these constraints on like how you're supposed to build and and like what you can actually do. So yeah, I think I was just in this pro class. I think we had just built like a little like MP3 player, and I was like, this is cool. This is so cool. I cannot believe I did this.
Right.
I can do this for a job. Like,
Yep.
really?
Yep.
So
Yeah,
that's what it was for
that's
me.
such a
Yeah.
universal thing for me. It's that the joy of the creation, and I think I folks don't give software enough credit for sort of that artistic aspect of it. And I've
Hmm.
often said it's more of an art than it is science. And but that
Yeah.
joy of creating and going, I made the computer do this is
Yeah.
yeah, it's that's certainly what snagged me, right? And it's ironically enough, I think the first thing I did was draw the Olympic rings. And I'm
Huh?
just like, oh my God, I made the computer do this. And I'm just like, this is amazing. And now you look back, you're like, okay, so I drew 5 circles. Like, what's the big deal? But you're like that. It's that thing that hooks you and brings you in for more. And that's
Yes,
awesome.
for sure.
Have you ever thought like, geez, maybe I should get back into meteorology?
So I got a minor in it
Okay.
that I've never used, but I mean it's there in my back pocket. Maybe one day it'll prove useful. But I find myself like still tracking hurricanes,
Sure.
and I think it might be one day like a passion project of mine to do
Sure.
some like data sciencey stuff with like some historical data and like and explore that. I just think it's fascinating. I think it's in like I think personally now with with the trends of climate change, I think now is probably the time where I need to start looking into that. I just
Sure.
think it's such an important piece, and I feel like if I have this knowledge, I need to do my part.
Sure. Sure.
Oh.
Well, and we're all sitting in front of green screens half the time now anyway. So,
Mhm.
you're like halfway there, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. So, what kind of stuff excites you now about being in DevRel? Like, for many of us, it's such a. If you would have told like 18-year-old me that I would enjoy getting up in front of people and yapping, I'd be like, "You're crazy. There's no way I'd do this." And now that's the thing I miss most is not being up in front of people and presenting. What drew you into that side of software?
Same, I'm the same way. My personality can come off sometimes a little reserved. And, like I've always, you know, for me, like I've always been kind of, yeah, like that quiet person in the room. But like if you ask me to speak, I'm gonna say something,
Sure.
like I'll have something to say, but only if so if you say something to me anyway. So for me, I enjoy it. Like we were talking about the idea of like creativity and programming, and like that's what really solidified it for me. I one thing I realized in my role is that I enjoy building, but I also enjoy sharing and
Hmm.
teaching others. And so I started like with just like small little lightning talks. I was like, we'll just see how this works out for me. And then those lightning talks started getting longer until
Yep.
like, hour-long talks. And I was like, and I remember thinking to myself, I cannot talk for an entire hour. Like, what am I gonna talk about? Like, are you serious? I was sitting there like, that's it. That's all I gotta say. But as over time, like, the talks grew and like
Yep.
my knowledge grew. And um one day I was at an event, I was at a conference and I was speaking, and someone who I just didn't I like someone like introduced themselves and were looking for somebody to join their team, but I didn't know that at the time. They were just
Sure.
asking me all kinds of questions. And so I did my presentation, and I got a DM, a Twitter DM, and they were like, "Hey, really enjoyed your presentation. Have you considered working at Microsoft?" And I'm like, "What?" Like,
I have now.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I was like, "What? Okay." And so, like, for me, developer relations, yeah, it's just I enjoy like just kind of having control of my creativity.
Right.
And I can still get to build, and I still get to build solutions. I get to use the cloud to build those solutions. And like the cloud is vast. There's so many things. There's
Right.
so many things I want to learn, and so many things I want to know. And so it's been kind of fun to like grow into like my technology set and like use what I have, bring what I have, and like build
Hmm.
on top of that with like the cloud.
Yeah, it's a great marriage of that intense curiosity to play with things and then get to go teach other people and share that excitement of look what cool thing I just did. And now you can go do this cool thing. In fact, you can
Mhm.
do way cooler things because I just showed you the intro. And yeah,
Yes.
I love that about this job is our opportunity to get to share and teach and show other
Yes.
folks and hopefully blow up roadblocks for them and get them up that mountain a little faster. But
Hmm.
oh, that's fantastic. So you did some Perl. Is that still your go-to language, or is there something else that you rely on if you're playing around with stuff?
So the last time I touched Pro was pretty much in college. But so my senior year of college, we had a capstone project, and one of my friends, that I've just been, I've known throughout like, my college career, he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Look, if you build this part of the system in VB, I will hook you up with an internship." And I was like, "Cool, I
All
will
right.
do that." Because I was like leading this team, and I was like, "Okay, team, we're building this in .NET. This is the guidance that we got." And so he followed through. And at that point, I didn't really know where I wanted to be in the
Sure.
industry, but like I had this web background from my earlier years. And so joining this team, it was VB, which I I love the language. It's such a great, like, this is a great language. It's a great language. It's a really great introduction to .NET.
Sure.
And yeah, and so it was Visual Basic with web forms. And so being able to like, dig into my memory of like, HTML and CSS and apply it, and then add JavaScript when our team eventually took like our flagship product and moved on to ASP.NET MVC. So like, that model view controller design was like really popular around that time.
Yeah.
And also around the time of the browser wars and all that stuff happening. It was a really exciting time, actually. And so when MVC came out, so did jQuery. And so
Yeah.
and that's when we made a shift to C#. So I picked up C#. JavaScript, jQuery, and it was just a really exciting time. I just learned so much and just like absorbed so much. So right now, my skill set is definitely, at least the language that I built with the longest has been C# and JavaScript. And in the past like year and a half, I've been learning Python,
Oh,
which has
sure.
been a really fun language. And that same friend that helped me with the internship, he I remember in his class he was always talking about how much he loved Python. This is maybe like 2010 2009, and he like just kept on talking and talking and talking about Python. And I kind of wish I had like paid more attention and like dug into it sooner, because like
Sure.
the community is really great. Like the language, I just have so much fun building with Python. I enjoy it. Like it's just so accessible and like so easy to like, at least especially if you have like a programming background,
Hmm.
or if you have that problem solving spirit, like you just
Yes.
like fall in love with Python.
Yes.
So that's what I really enjoy about it. So yeah, I'm kind of just like just trying to continue to groom that knowledge in Python.
Sure.
So
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And I feel like so much of what we do is that problem solving thing. And uh, I've had some students that have given me this sort of imposter syndrome lament, and I have to kind of talk them off the ledge of it doesn't matter how you get into this industry. You've either got that curiosity, you've got that problem solving bit, or you don't. And if you do, doesn't matter what your background was, you can excel in this industry. I think it's one of the things I really love about this industry, is we have that ability. But yeah, it is about that playing around and trying it out and seeing what happens. And that's,
yes.
yeah, that's, yeah. As you were going through that technology, I'm thinking, yep, I remember that. I remember the browser. I still have like the PTSD from, well, it worked in Netscape, but it didn't
Oh
work. And I'm like,
gosh.
no, oh God, or Fire. I remember being on one project demoing things in Firefox and showing my
Hmm.
customers, this is what you could have. Like, this is just here. This just works.
Hmm.
But here's the, Internet Explorer 6 or whatever it
Six.
was at the time, and none of that works. I'm sorry. It's just
Hmm.
like, oh, my kingdom for a better browser.
Hmm.
Good times, good
Hmm.
times. So we were talking about this in the pre-show. You and I typically would spend a lot of time on airplanes. And Dan Vegas says the day we no longer had to support IE6 was a great one. Yes, I think for many of us that was like, thank you, finally. And where I was at one company, or I was given one presentation where somebody made a comment about that, or I said something. I said, we still have to support. And I said, really, why? And I said, we signed a long-term contract to continue to use whatever version of Windows had that on it. And I'm just like, I am so sorry for you. It might be time to
Hmm.
move on. But yes, thank you, Dan. I agree 100% on that one. It was a good day when we could move on from that. But anyway, now I got to reboot the stack here. So we normally spend a lot of time on airplanes. Is there a place you're excited to get back to? I mean, I know we were talking a little bit like there's some apprehension. I was feeling a lot more optimistic 6 weeks ago than I am now. But is there some place you're like, boy, once we're good to go, I'm going to be on the first airplane out of town?
Man, honestly, every time I leave Microsoft Build, I feel so inspired. I get to see my friends. I get to see, just some colleagues I haven't seen in a while, and it's just always really been a great like meeting point for us. So I'm really, and online has been great and it's been fine, but like, just like that feeling of like, when you're at a conference and you
Yep.
walk past somebody, you're like, oh, hey, I haven't
Yep.
seen you. How's it going? Yeah, or I see you on Twitter all the time. We've
Hmm.
gotten to chat on Twitter.
Hmm.
And so I miss that. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that. And, honestly, being in the Redmond area, not only do I have like, Microsoft colleagues, but I have like folks, kind of in the area, like
Right.
just tech folks in the area. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to like, making, make, rebuild, not rebuilding, but like solidifying those connections again from like by being in person. But yeah, honestly also the JavaScript community as well. I used to run a small meetup in Brooklyn called Brooklyn JS. And we've definitely taken one moratorium since, everything has happened. We made a choice not to go virtual. And that was also a really great community. You feel so like, I remember leaving so inspired and
Yeah.
like, and being able to also connect and like have good conversations. And like And that was honestly the first like community that like welcomed me with open arms when I came to New York. That because that was around the time I was kind of like just like looking, yeah, just looking for connection. And so like I'll never forget like what that did for me, and where, and that I'm like thankful to that community came to, like we that community and I found each other
Right.
during that time. So I just have like lots of fond memories of that. And so like I'm looking forward to being back in those pockets of the community for
Yeah.
sure.
I do think that's one unique aspect maybe about software. And I don't know. I mean, this is the world I live in, but we have so many meetups and user groups and opportunities to connect. I don't know if others have that in other fields, but I miss that. There's no getting around it. I miss having those opportunities to interact with folks and visit places. And I'm, guardedly optimistic, for sure 2020. Well, okay, I'm done giving predictions, but eventually, right, we'll get to go out and mix with people, because there is something missing in the virtual world, that being able to have that adjacent possible of bumping into you somewhere. And as we were talking, that's part of why I do this, is it's me forcing an adjacent possible to happen, and I appreciate that you took some time to hang out with me. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
of
think we'll get
course.
back eventually. Yeah. So,
Yes. Yes, we will. I agree. And I'm looking forward to that time. I mean, virtual is great. Like, I mean, I feel like it's a great like pivot into, being able to make that connection. But like, I can't deny that in person is like a different dynamic.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I am curious, how did you end up in New York? Is it usually go the other way around, that New Yorkers move to Florida? Isn't that the running joke?
so I mean, I kind of was a New Yorker and moved to Florida.
Okay, just back to your roots.
Yeah, so I was born in New York,
Okay,
and my parents are Caribbean, and they
okay,
were like, "It's too cold here. We need to get out of here. Like, like we're used to sun,
100%
sand,
agree.
and warmth. Let's get out of here." So we moved to Florida. Grew up in South Florida, and yeah, and one day I it was like probably like 2 3 years after I graduated. I was just like, I'm ready for something different.
Sure.
I'm ready. I'm really, really ready to challenge myself and to like I was ready to take a little bit more risk. And it wasn't like my job or anything like that. I just was ready. I was just
Yeah,
ready for a change. And so I'll never forget the day. And I was working at Sears Home Services that time, working on some of their like sales, like internal sales stuff, and
sure.
building stuff with MVC and web forms. And it was actually a really fun job because like I had like my hands in like different things. Like so I was doing like win forms and web forms and MVC, and like it kind of had that spirit of, I think that's kind of where I realized the spirit of, like I had the spirit of DevRel, just like kind of having my hands in all different things. And yeah, I just came home one day and I sat at my coffee table and I was like, I'm gonna pick 10 places outside of Florida to move. And the first place to call me was in New York. So yeah, I was like, let's go, let's do it. So
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I love visiting New York, the energy, the fact that literally anything you can conceive of, imagine, is somewhere in New York. Oh,
mhm,
you need a specific button for your coat. There's a store that has it,
mhm.
and they don't just have that button, they have 8,000 buttons, and it's just like, okay, cool. You just don't have that level in too many cities. But
Yes.
oh man, how has it been in New York with everything that's been going on with COVID? How has that been for you?
It was, the earlier in last year, it was scary. It was
Yeah,
really scary. And it was funny because like I had just started my travel circuit like around
sure.
that time, like right when things started to shut down. And so when I came home, like, I think that's when the gravity really set in for me.
Right.
And so I mean, today like things have definitely improved, but like, it's going to be a long road. And
Yeah.
as we've seen, it's probably not going to be linear. And
Good point.
yeah, and so I just think that like as time goes on, my hope is that that like I'm able to see my JavaScript folks in a meetup next year,
Hmm.
and I think personally, I'm on like the cautious side. This is people's health, this is my health,
Yeah.
this is my loved one's health. And so yeah, just like being in like such a highly populated area, I think it's just like for me, I have to like, just take that responsibility on, certain level of responsibility on, on myself. So yeah, so things are improving, but it's gonna take some time.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's going to take time for us to kind of emerge as well. I know the first time we like went to a restaurant was just
Mhm.
weird. You're like a
Yeah.
mouse looking for the cat, to come pounce on you, and it still feels kind of strange. And
Hmm.
I picked up some dessert the other day, and the restaurant I went into was packed, wall to
Mm.
wall, shoulder to shoulder. It was a 30-minute wait, and all I needed to do was run in, get a piece of cake, and leave. And I was anxious just being around that many people that close together. And it's like, oh, it's going to take a little while for that to come out. I don't know how it's going to feel the first time I get on an airplane. I don't think I'll remember how airplanes work, the TSA works. I'm going to be that weirdo wandering around going, well, where's my gate? And yeah,
Hmm.
it's going to be strange, but
Hmm.
oh well.
Just get there early, just in case.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I'll have to get there a little earlier than, I had it down to a science. You fly
Hmm.
enough, you're like, oh, my flight is this. I need to leave my house at 1:23 and I will
Hmm.
be there on time. And now it's going to be like, where's the airport? Where's parking again? I
Yeah.
remember seeing signs about the new parking ramps being available whatever year it is, and I thought, oh my god, that's so far in the future. And I think they're basically going to be built by the time I get to fly again. Is essentially what it's going to boil down to. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's good times. But, oh, so let me switch gears a little bit. What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? What keeps you when we're not banging on keyboards? What do you do?
I'm a big gamer. I mean, that's like I mentioned before, like I was playing video games like since I was very young. I'll do that. Like I'm more of a PC and portable gamer. So I
Okay.
have like my little build here, and when the work is done, like I'm turning on my work or my desktop and doing something. I also enjoy like building, tinkering. So like I just moved into my place, and so I've been doing little home projects. And I also have a backyard, so I'm looking forward to like putting together some things in the backyard
Nice.
and building. So like I'm like a furniture like building expert, like a assembly expert now. Like I'm
There you
pretty good
go.
at it. So that I also enjoy like reading, listening to audiobooks, roller skating. So I also got a pair of inline skates that I've been meaning
Okay.
to like zoom around the park.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah, so like I feel like my interests like change over time. I just
Sure.
feel like just kind of like the same spirit of Devereaux. I got put my hands in like all kinds of different things. So right now I'm like doing like some paint by numbers stuff and like like iron art exhibits. Like I some art to like purchase and like definitely been spending a lot more time in like my area, like going to a lot of black owned businesses, lots of walking.
Yeah.
So kind of just like just like I'm finding that in isolation, in isolation or during like quarantine, I feel like a lot of folks, for it's happened for a lot of folks who have had the privilege to be able to like sit down and like reflect and like kind of think about where they are in life and where the things that like the things around them. And like for me, I'm realizing that movement is so important. So
Right.
like I definitely like have been walking more and like making sure I'm taking care of myself. So like yeah, I feel like now I'm like a lot of the stuff I do is just like how can I enhance and enrich like my experience in my life. So like I know it's movement and building and creating. And so and then like games are like a great way for me to like blow off steam and kind
Yeah.
of like take a vacation, like a mental vacation.
Do you have a favorite game or one you go back to regularly or?
Yes. So I really love RPGs. I love like swords and magic. Like so my favorite game of all time is the Baldur's Gate series. It's based off like Dungeons and Dragons, like Forgotten Realms, that whole like universe. And I love games like full of lore and stuff like that. I
Sure.
just I just find that it's so interesting that like so many people have put so much time and detail into like building this world,
Right.
that I get to immerse myself in and like read the library and like read the history. So like that, like Elder Scrolls series, so like Skyrim, I was like reading all the books, Fable, like that kind of stuff. And I also enjoy like JRPGs, so like Final Fantasy, of course. And when I was in college, I really found my people. So, like I around that time I was playing a lot of Dance Revolution. So I love a lot of like music and rhythm games, and like so
Sure.
I found a group of people who I could play like competitively with. So I did that for a little bit, and that's a lot of fun. I still have like a dance pad, around here somewhere that I'll that I need to bust out, every once in a while. But like I enjoy like a lot of so like I find like a lot of it is like stories and like lore, and then the other part is like a music element or like some kind of rhythm, like interactive rhythm situations that I enjoy. So yeah, but I like all kinds of things, so I'll try anything for the most part.
It's amazing to see how far we've come from, I mean, let alone Pong, but I think back to playing Mario, it only goes one way and you've
Hmm.
got two buttons, and compare that to what we have today with these, just to your point, incredibly immersive worlds with almost limitless freedom of doing it. Do play the story however you want. You want to just wander around, you can do that. You want to play a specific mission, you can do that. And it's almost overwhelming to see how much that has evolved. And I've sometimes I'll be gaming with my kid, and of course he's just grew up with this, so to him that's air. And I have to
Hmm.
remind him that when I was learning, you had two buttons, and now there's like 30, and I'm like, wait, which one is it? It's R2. Which one's that again? And there's that little bit of a hitch in my giddy up if I don't get to do this often enough. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's amazing what's out there. And have
Hmm.
you ever seen that show, Mythic Quest? I think if memory serves.
No, I've definitely seen like I think like it's definitely been a recommendation for me.
Hmm.
So, and I guess I see why.
It's pretty funny, and I think you would recognize aspects of what we do hiding in there as well, and
uh,
it's quite amusing, I think. And it's I've never done game development, so I don't know how accurate that side of it is, but it is very funny for those of us that come from a software background. And my wife enjoys it too, although she's a business analyst, so I shouldn't denigrate her work. So she likes to joke her job is to tell people like me what to do. I guess you're not wrong necessarily, but
I was like, I need that. I know I need that all the time. I'm very, very grateful for the folks on my team who help me stay focused.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of staying focused, that reminded me when you were talking about just how like games would evolve over time. I like in college, I really, really got into World of Warcraft. It was like a
Mm,
problem. I had to quit like my junior year or else I wasn't
sure.
gonna graduate. It was bad. But I had a lot of fun and a lot of cool people on it.
Yeah, no, that's true. It can be a real time sink if you're not careful, and but
Yeah.
it's also a lot of fun too. I mean,
Mhm.
there's worse things you could do with your time for sure.
True. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, geez, where do I want to go next? This is what always is fun to me, is just to see kind of like where did the conversation go, and what other kind of interesting things do we want to dive into. So,
Mhm.
is there anything that you wish your younger self had known? Is there anything you wish you could go back and tell yourself that 10 years ago or whatever? Hey, just do this, or don't sweat that, or
Yeah. I think I would have said to myself to take myself and my work more seriously. And, for me, and I didn't realize, I think I'm like just realizing this maybe like 1 or 2 years ago is that like I have my work self but like my actual self, like my experiences, I bring that with me to, when I show up to work every day.
hmm
So for example, the way that kind of, shows up for me is that, I was the youngest child of, I'm the youngest child of, of many. And like, I have like some siblings that are like a little bit much older than me that
sure.
kind of had like a guardian type of they're kind of like guardians, and they took care of me. And I think for me that made me feel like I only would speak when I'm spoken to, like I should
Mm,
only speak when I'm spoken to. I should only you know like I should only just take the information from me and like in like and turn that into something I need to be doing. And the downside of that was, for me, it was that like I would feel like I shouldn't speak up, that my opinion wasn't, important. Like I'm just being told what to do.
Sure.
And, I started to realize that like I think like there have been themes throughout my career where like folks have tried to tell me, hey, I would love to hear your opinion. I would love to, for you to, take this on. And I just didn't think that. I just didn't
Sure.
realize that. And so now I have that awareness, and I feel so much, I feel like still like it's adjustment period for me right now, like realizing that like I like the word, like what I say, like can turn into a project or turn into like, a task that I don't have to do myself. Like, also so it's like, taking that, like, you know, uh, building a plan, but also asking others to contribute, and like, realizing that like I can ask for help,
Right.
and those type of things. So for me, yeah, I think that would be my message to myself. It's like, when the opportunity arises, you can step up on your soapbox. Like, the soapbox is there for you. No one's like, people are trying to push you into the soapbox. Go for it, do it. And so yeah, I think that's what I would, the knowledge that I would, what the knowledge I would impart to my past self, my younger self.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
It's hard sometimes to have that confidence to throw your opinion out there, and
Hmm.
especially if you're new or you're new to the team, it's like, yeah, there's a reason we brought you in, so tell us what
Hmm.
you know. And I think it's also incumbent upon all of us to make sure there's space for that too, and
Hmm.
that's encouraged. I one of my former I don't know what his title was, director or something like that. I was in a meeting with him, and I was really remarkable to me how good a job he did of making sure everyone contributed. And if you'd been quiet for a while, he's like, hey, Kathy, tell me what you think about this, or I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And just his ability to pull everybody in is something that I definitely jotted down as, hey, that's something I got to remember too. And because it's easy to get into that thing where, well, I like hearing the sound of my voice, and not realize that you're boxing out somebody else who might have a really good insight, but they don't feel like they can share it because I'm being too loud.
Hmm.
So I think that's part of that equation too.
Hmm. Yeah, finding your voice is so important. And like, it's not only about finding your voice and knowing, when to speak, but knowing how to speak, like knowing when to like, just like this person you're mentioning, strategizing, like
Yep.
thinking about when is like reading the room, like
Yeah.
it all really goes into it. And it's different in, the virtual world, or on video versus in person. And so I'm actually really interested in like going to my first in-person meeting and seeing what that's like,
Right.
like what can I take, like what can I grab from, this kind of this period of growth, that I've had now, and apply it in the real world. So
Yeah, I read an interesting piece last week about sort of the return to in office thing, and how many people are like, yeah, no, I don't want to go back. And I mean, I've been remote for 4.5 years, so this is normal for me. But one of the interesting side effects of being remote is you're judged on what you put out. It's like, what did you get done? What did you accomplish? There's less room for the, well, who's really good at the politics, who's the good diplomat. And I think that's terrifying to some folks, that, wait, you're actually going to have to evaluate me based on what I accomplished, not just on my ability to brown nose. So
hmm.
it's
Hmm.
going to be very interesting to see, I think, what things look like in a year, because
Yes.
I don't think there's any way we go back to the way it was before. And
Hmm.
like the Slack commercial that's been on every single Olympics thing I've watched for the last week. We don't just go back to the way things were, and I think they're right about that. I don't know what the new thing is, but it
Hmm.
isn't the way things were in 2019.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I've also been like remote for almost about the same amount of time, and yeah, like I do, like I enjoy the mix. I enjoy the mix, but like I understand that, like, like it's not going to be whatever that mix was. It's not going to be the same way,
Right.
and like I think that, like, just like how things have happened where we had to accept this is how we work, and this is how, things are. Like, there's probably going to be another shift. And, I think that, like, as like folks who have, I think that, like, what it has taught us is this ability to pivot, and I
Yeah.
think that, like, we're like I'm looking forward to seeing what today's modern workplace is going to look like, how it evolves. So, and I'm really just happy to be part of that. And now that
Right.
I'm using this voice to be able to, like, to, like, influence that. And, like, I feel that that's, like, important, just for us as a society to be
Yeah.
able to, like, voice, like, what works for us, what's not working for us.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, and what works for different individuals, for some
Mm-hmm.
folks, it might be being in the office 3, 4 days a week. And for other folks, it might
Yes.
be, I'll come into the office once a month or
Mm-hmm.
once a quarter or something. And I think that, I hope that's what we see on the other end of this, is let people structure that work-life
Yes.
balance that meets their needs. But I just don't see, after a year and a half of this, people saying, yeah, you know what I miss is a 2-hour commute every day.
Right.
I think that ship has sailed, despite what some CEOs are pounding the table on. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll see. So I do definitely miss people, and I think that's part of what I love about what we get to do is, most of the time I'm in here, but then I can also go hang out with people, but I don't have that 9 to 5 commute, which I don't miss at all,
Mm-hmm.
and will never go back to. That's just not happening. That ship has sailed for me. But anyway, so speak of the Olympics, have you been watching any of the seemingly endless coverage on every channel that NBC owns?
I I have been catching the recaps. I haven't
Okay.
watched. I think I've been meaning to, like, sit down on my couch and, like, watch a few games or so, but, like, I've never, like, really had, like, a specific sport I
Sure.
wanted to watch. Like, every time I turn it on, I'm always fascinated by what's going on, though.
Right.
So yeah, but, like, I think some memories I've had have been, like, synchronized swimming. I know I'd always thought that was really cool. I actually I was really inspired by, I don't know if you heard about the young woman who, the skateboarder who won gold. I think she was from Brazil.
She's very
And
young, as I recall.
yeah, I think she was like 16, 15 or something around that age. And I was so inspired because it took me down a lane, because when, the precursor to TikTok, Vine, was around, she had, like, a viral video, and she was, like,
Yeah.
trying to do a kickflip.
Yep.
And she got it on the
But
last try
and
in the
wasn't she
video.
wearing like fairy wings?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. That was her.
That
And
was so
yeah,
cool.
is so cool. So, like, I hope I get to catch some recaps, because I think, like,
Yep.
stuff like that I would love to, like, just watch and,
Yep.
see it like that. So yeah. So I haven't watched Olympics, but, it's on my list.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun for me to try to reverse engineer the rules of a sport that I don't really know anything about. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, at one point I was watching, I think it's team handball, and
Mm.
which is this interesting like, my wife said, oh, it's as if they took the rules for basketball, hockey, soccer, and volleyball, and, like, threw it in a blender, and then this is what came out the other end. And it's a much more physical sport than I would have expected, and fouls seem to be totally, like, whatever, you just tackle somebody and that seems legit. And never mind rugby. I mean, rugby sevens, I watch this, and it's insane to me. People go out there and tackle, and have no protective equipment on. But
Mm-hmm.
that to me is kind of cool to, like, see these sports that we don't get to normally encounter, and then you realize that for many of these folks, they've poured their life into this event, and this is the only time people watch it, is every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no financial gain for them, or at least not commensurate with the amount of effort they put into it. And I mean, that to me is amazing, to see how effortless they're able to make this look, you know.
Yeah.
And then you think about, so, like, I was watching table tennis, and it occurred to me, they would have to spot me 3 games and 10 points, and they'd still beat me, and it wouldn't even be close. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I could get a point off these people, and it's just amazing what they're able to do. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's always just so fascinating, and shit, yeah, like, just a number of events that,
right.
like, that are there. Yeah, it's just really, really cool.
You didn't
So
even know were a thing.
yeah.
Like pentathlon, that's a thing. Like, what how and I'm always amazed, like, how does somebody get into that?
Uh-huh.
Like what is the that sort of event that grabs you? Like, Pearl grabbed you and brought you into the software, and thank goodness it did. But what grabs somebody to say, so we're going to take these five largely unrelated sports and we're going to mix them together? And yes, that's what I want to do. That I want to spend countless hours perfecting these five unrelated things.
Mm-hmm.
Other things I understand. Like I love track and field. I'm a former field guy, and so I love watching the throws. To me, that's the coolest thing is I can actually watch all of the throws. Thank you to NBC for showing me all that. But I see where that comes from. You do it in high school, you do it in college. I don't remember any high school or college I went to that had like a modern pentathlon team. So I'm just
Mm-hmm.
amazed at how that stuff happens. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Yeah.
it's fun to see. So
Yes, for sure.
is there any TV show streaming thing you've been watching over the pandemic that's kind of helped you get through all this craziness?
Yes. This is a little bit of I'm a little ashamed to admit, but not really because I grew up with it. But I grew up with reality TV.
Okay.
So like I play it in the background. It's like kind of like background because like I kind of like know what's gonna happen. Like,
Sure.
the typical like churn is like someone says something, someone got upset about them saying something, they argue, maybe they argue in the next episode, or maybe they make one next episode. So
Sure.
one of the other things. So, it's like easy for me to digest, easy for me to like hop back in and like know what's going on. So that's kind of been my guilty pleasure. But for the most part, I really enjoy like sci-fi and
Yeah.
like sitcoms, like things that will either make me think or make me laugh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I've been.
Yeah, humor has definitely been something I have sought out over the last 18 months. Please make me
Hmm.
laugh. I'm so
Yeah.
happy Dead Lasso season 2 has finally restarted, and I'm really I'm so torn because I want to like watch them when they come out, but then I also want to like wait and binge, and I just I'm sort of stuck in that analysis paralysis of I can't wait, but I want to, because then you get to the end and you're like I need more, and yeah, it's good
Hmm.
times, good times. So is there a movie or a TV show, just imagine when you were in hotels and you're flipping around and you hit it and you're like, okay, well, I'm in. Doesn't matter whether you're 20 minutes in, an hour and a half in, I'm watching it till it's over.
Mm. Mm. Maybe, let's see. Honestly, I never really watched TV in the hotels. But I think the one show that I will kind of have like on repeat and like kind of play in the background, especially when I'm going to sleep, is Star Trek.
Oh,
Next Generation, or Deep Space Nine, or sometimes even Voyager. Like I wish
okay.
I could just like put them in like a whole playlist and just like kind of have them like play like in
Sure.
like random episodes. Because for me, like again, one of those shows that really makes me like kind of think, and also like it's also like very like not like dark in terms of genre, but just like like the lighting and stuff like that. So like I can kind of watch and like gets me like calm down, go to sleep and things like that. Except for like when all the Borg episodes, I mean
Hmm.
there is an important piece of the story, but oh my goodness, I felt like it's very reminiscent of like I also am an anime fan, and like
Yeah.
in like Dragon Ball Z, there's always that ramp up, like I'm gonna fight you, I'm gonna fight you, I'm gonna fight you. And I felt like that's like the same energy with like the Borg storyline a little bit
Sure.
sometimes.
Sure.
So anyway, so yeah, so I'll like have definitely have that would have that in the background. And like any like common like are very like popular sitcoms. So like some episodes of The Office, or like whatever. Like I never really got into Friends or
Sure.
Seinfeld, but like any sitcom that I find like I've probably seen in the past, I'll probably like have it in the background. Oh, Golden Girls, that's always a great one. Always good. So
Oh my God, I remember
so
watching
yeah.
that growing up with my grandmother.
Hmm.
Oh, geez.
Uh-huh.
The amount of overlap between our growing up is frightening to me. It is the similarities there is crazy to me, but it's
Hmm.
part of what I love about this space. But
Hmm. I've been interested in kind of exploring like at least one season of a soap opera.
oh,
So like my so I have like very like like vivid memories of like, you know, my sister watching soap operas while she was like, you know, like babysitting me.
Sure.
And, you know, I always thought I was like, oh, this is so boring. Like, you know, it's the middle of the day. Like, I don't want to watch this. I want to watch cartoons. And, you
Yes.
know, but now I'm like thinking like, I actually really love a good like drama. I'm like,
Sure.
maybe
Sure.
I'll just watch a season and see what happens.
Right. Well, and to be fair, primetime dramas are not as different from soap operas as we might want to admit.
Hmm.
It follows a lot of the same tropes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think I might be for me. I have to dive in there.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that. I hear that. All right, let me throw a few lightning round questions at you and see where this leads us. So what's your favorite meal? What's your go-to meal?
Pizza.
Nice, nice.
Pizza. Especially when the pepperonis are like really crispy and they like curl up.
Mm.
Perfect. So
Now, where do you stand on the great pizza debate of like New York pizza versus deep dish pizza versus any of the other mixes of pizzas?
yeah. I honestly it may be because like, you know, like I didn't grow up in New York, but I'll eat them all. I'll eat anything.
Yeah,
You know, pineapple, I'll take off the pieces of pineapple and eat those separately and
sure.
then eat the pizza. But like I'm not gonna rib somebody too much about having
Yeah,
pineapple on a pizza.
yeah.
But like, you know, but if it presented in front of me, I will eat
Yeah. No,
it.
I'm with you. I don't understand like what can't we just eat it all? I mean, it's all good. It's,
Yeah.
maybe you won't have it as often, like that's fine. Like I don't seek out deep dish pizza, but if I'm in Chicago, I'm
Mhm.
gonna find some deep dish pizza. And
Right.
I'm not gonna apologize for that. Now, if I'm in New
Hmm.
York, you know what I'm gonna find? I'm gonna find some New York pizza. And again, I'm not gonna apologize for that. Yeah.
Right.
So. All right, how about coffee, espresso, or tea?
Ooh, coffee.
Okay.
I just need the enjoyment of just like taking a sip and
Okay.
you know taking my time.
What is your favorite extraction method?
Oh, I am not really picky. I
Okay.
am like I usually just like will throw it in the coffee maker and be done with it, and then you know put it in the freezer and like I have iced coffee. You know, like and I don't even try like go through the effort of like cold brew my coffee. I
Sure,
just like
sure.
brew it and throw it in the fridge.
Nothing wrong with that. It amazes me how anal retentive we can get about coffee.
Hmm.
And how broad people are like, I just drink whatever I get at the grocery store at the quick trip down the road. And other people are like, oh dear God, no, my beans are 3 days old. I threw them away.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm stunned at how much money you can spend when you dive into this coffee space.
For
I
real.
just bought a new grinder and I'm kind of blown away by how expensive it was. And it was one of the cheaper ones I was looking at. It's just
Hmm.
like, wait, so somebody spent how much? How many
Yeah.
thousands of dollars on a grinder? Oh,
I honestly, so
okay,
I was
okay.
definitely in that place where I was like definitely like grinding my own beans and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? Like this really doesn't like inconsequential for me. Like, and so like now my coffee grinder is like a herb grinder. So like whenever I have like cilantro that I don't want to cut up, I just throw it in
Mmm, cilantro. Oh, love
there.
cilantro. God,
Hmm.
that on anything.
Yes.
Um, pie or cake?
Cake,
Okay.
cake, cheesecake
Okay.
specifically.
Oh, all right. Now, see, cheesecake is one of those things where is it a pie? Is it a cake? And I
Mm.
very vividly remember being in the project room one day and we got into this lengthy debate about what's the difference between a cupcake and a muffin.
Mm. Hmm.
Because
There must be.
I mean, sure
Mhm.
there is, but I mean, because you can have a savory, muffin, but you can have a sweet muffin,
Mhm.
so is a chocolate muffin any different than a chocolate cupcake?
Right? There must be like some kind of like taxonomy. Like there
Right?
must be like someone has had to have figured this out.
Of course, of course. Yeah. And of course as software people are like, well, let's see, hang on. So it's got this, but it's not a hat. Oh man, but you could put frosting on that too, couldn't you? Like, oh dang, and what's a cornbread muffin? Like, that's a
Mhm.
bread or is it I mean, yeah, it's
Mhm.
funny the places our brains will take us. How about
Mhm.
oceans versus mountains?
Oh, that is a hard one. I would probably have to be oceans.
Okay.
I've just been a coastal person like most of my life, so I probably have to do that. But I have been a place where I've had both. So I went
Yes.
to Cannon Beach, Oregon, and I will never forget just like being able to see the ocean and just
Hmm.
having like this beautiful like mountain range and like really pretty trees behind me.
Hmm.
It was breathtaking. So yeah.
I don't think most people appreciate just how much elevation change there is as you go west in this country.
Hmm.
It is pretty mind-boggling, and you don't have to get that far west of even where I live to run into real mountains real fast,
Hmm.
and it's something that surprised me until I did a road trip. But
Hmm. Yeah.
how about food trucks versus Michelin stars?
Whew. I would probably, just knowing how I am as a New Yorker, I'd probably go for Michelin stars, but like I will always love like a food truck, like
Right.
I'm not picky, but like I am definitely a sit down, like, type of girl.
Yep. Yep.
Like
Is there a favorite restaurant that you're dying to get back to?
ooh, not really.
Okay.
I feel like I've had just a great experience through like the most places I've been to,
Sure.
but I think I am looking forward to maybe some Korean barbecue, like going
Ooh.
into K-Town and just, like getting some like short rib.
Oh, oh man.
Mhm.
Oh, now I'm getting hungry. How about ebook versus paper book when you're sitting down to read?
Ebooks. So I have definitely like shifted a lot of my collection to ebooks. It's
Hmm.
just, especially like living in New York where you're living, small space living,
Sure.
it's just not it's not good for me to just have like, be surrounded like by
Right.
like physical things. So
Right.
I have definitely already like reduced the number of physical books I
Yeah.
have.
That was one of those interesting shifts I saw in my career that early on we all had bookshelves, we all had like 30 books on them. And
Hmm.
then seeming like every cube move I made, I had fewer and fewer books that made the jump with me, and to the point where it's like we actually don't have bookshelves anymore. At
Hmm.
least that's my vague recollection of what it was like to have a real job. But
Hmm.
so I'm really interested in the next couple questions I'm gonna throw at you. So Game of Thrones versus Lord of the Rings.
Ooh, I would probably say Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Yeah, probably Lord of the Rings.
Okay. And
Yeah,
I'm guessing I know the answer to this one, but Star Wars versus Star Trek.
yeah, Star Trek for
Okay.
certain.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. Yeah, that's always a fun one. Now, I'm a fan of both. But Star Wars was just so foundational for me growing up.
Mm,
That's like the first movie I remember seeing in the theater was actually Empire. And I'm making that up, but that's at least the memory that I've created for myself. But
mm.
so, a notes app or a notebook?
Oh gosh. Notebook.
Okay.
Actually, I have a work notebook that I write like the most like
Nice.
three things I want to get done for that day. And I'll write like other notes, kind of
Yeah.
like half diary, half bullet journal, half like whatever. So but like I'll use my notes app for like my personal stuff, but I also use reminders a lot. So like if like, oh, I have like, for example, like my license is about to expire, so I made a reminder like your
Yep.
license is about to expire. Like I did that like 6 months ago, and I got
Mm-hmm.
the reminder yesterday, and I was like, thanks, I am so glad I looked out for my future self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, we were talking about that on the pre-show too, that I long since figured out I don't remember things. Just if it's not
Mm,
written down, if I don't, just get up and do it, it's not going to happen. And
exactly.
it's frustrating because you want to believe, oh no, I'll remember that. Like, no, no, I
Yeah.
won't. I won't. I got to write it down
Exactly.
immediately.
Hmm.
So, are you a night owl or a morning lark?
Ooh, so I think for the longest time, was a night owl. And I think my schedule has actually shifted a lot more. I think and it's so funny, like how like movement changes that. Like since
Yeah,
I've been like moving more and working out more, I feel like I've become like more of like a go to sleep early type of person. And that shift really happened to me during when daylight savings ends. And that's in November, right? I think.
yeah, it should be.
So okay, yeah. So, sorry, my cat's food dispenser just went off. Sorry.
I'm
So
actually
he's in the
surprised neither of my cats have bothered to Zoom bomb me here because they usually. I mean, I actually funny, one's over there stalking, so I'm sure he's
just
trying to.
watching.
Earlier, he tried to open the door to the basement because that's where my wife retreated after I told her to use her indoor voice, which I'm
Mhm.
sure I'll pay for later tonight. But he thinks he can open doors and he tries. Like he actually got one of our doors open once, I think by accident. But
Hmm.
it is a little, it has occurred to me, like if the cats do figure out how to open the doors, we're in some trouble because they know where the
Oh
treats are,
yes.
and they will
Mm.
gorge themselves. But
Hmm. Yeah, they're sneaky. They're sneaky
they are
characters.
little ninjas. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing that gives me the answer to my next question: cats or dogs?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely a cat person
Yeah.
for certain.
Have
Yeah.
have you seen that Chevy commercial with Walter the cat at all?
No.
Oh my gosh, you should Google that. It's hilarious. It's a cat that basically acts like a dog, and look for the
Oh.
the longer version, the 60-second version. It's I've seen it more times than I should really admit, and I mean, like, tip of the hat to the ad folks who put that together because it's really a well done commercial. How about board games versus computer games? As a
Oh,
gamer, where do you fall?
I love them both.
Yeah.
But I would probably go for computer gaming because that was my first love. So
A little easier to do when we're all stuck in our homes too. It's hard,
yes.
easier now I guess, but hard to kind of, hey, let's get together and play Catan. Like, yeah, no.
Hmm.
How about tabs versus spaces?
Oh gosh. I honestly don't care. I really don't. I think I probably do tabs. Because that's what I started
Sure.
on, and and like I'm very like I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm set in my ways, but like I'm not changing. I don't change much. Like I like even when I like get my IDE, like I don't change too much. I don't add too much to it. I just
Right.
get started. So
Right. Yeah, it is kind of amazing to me how much we cling to things that really don't matter, and then we decide that's the hill we're going to die on.
hmm.
I remember years ago pairing with this guy, and we spent the first 45 minutes me just sitting there as he reformatted all these files to be in his preferred format, and I'm like, really?
Okay.
Could we just start
Hmm.
working on the problem? Because
Hmm.
problem's still here, and
hmm.
watching you format code is just not my idea of a good time, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
I remember, I think my second job, every time we would do like this, it was every Wednesday we would do code review, and we would always debate like when to throw an exception in tabs versus spaces. And like I know I would just tune out at that point. I was like, you know what, like when's lunch? Like
right, right, right. Yeah, Neil
so
Busing says that I should blame Makefile for that, and he's not wrong. It always comes back to a Makefile problem. It's always Make's fault, but
Mhm.
oh my gosh. Well, Jasmine, I could keep going, but I know you have more important things to do than hanging out with me. I appreciate so much you spending time with me. This has been a real treat, and I'm delighted to, again, just get to know you better and also see all these amazing intersections between our histories. And that's been super cool. So I thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure. And I've been, I really enjoy just like having just like the conversational type of, setup. So I thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for
Oh,
being here, and I hope everything goes well. And I do hope we do run into each other in the real world at some point in 22. And worst case, I'll just DM you and we'll force something to happen because I'm excited. I know I'll be back in New York. Well, I guess I assume I'll be back in New York. And although I've discovered in this job that the easiest way to actually meet up with someone that does what we do is to meet in a city that none of us lives in. That
mm-hmm.
tends to be the best intersection. In fact, two of my colleagues are in San Francisco. Well, they just left San Francisco, as the colleagues we have that lives there is just flying back into San Francisco from vacation, and it's like, yep, see, you can't meet in the city you live in. Those are
Mm-hmm.
just the rules. I didn't make them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I feel like our paths will intersect at some point.
I feel pretty strongly about that, and I am teaching again in the fall, so I may have to reach out to you to get your input again and see what kind of trouble that gets us into. I enjoyed having you last semester, and it was always good just to get that perspective, and get you to talk about all sorts of cool cloud stuff, which we didn't talk about at all today. I mean, I
Yes.
try to stay away from tech as much as I can in this because I think the more interesting part is the people part. So that's what we're all here for. So anyway, well, I'll be back next week with the Garden State Jug leader Niha. So I'm very excited to hang out with her and one of my coffee buddies, the coffee club. We should get you in the coffee club too. We'll have to tag you next time one of those shows up on Twitter. Although I will warn you, it tends to be an awful lot of replies, and there's a little bit of noise in your feed for a couple hours as people comment on someone's coffee. That's what we love. But anyway, all right. Well, thank you again, and we will see everybody next week.